Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about I and simplifying powers of I. Let's do a little review. First of all, what is I? I is representing the square root of -1. Okay, so that's our definition for I. I squared is equal to -1. Now that's the piece of information I told you would be really helpful to remember that. But what if we had other powers of I? So I like to make for my students what I call the I chart. And we're going to take a little time to do this. So let's say we have I to the first power. I is I. Okay? And that's just what it is. It's not going to change. It's just I. I squared, that's the one we have to know, is -1. Now what if you had I cubed? I cubed is I squared times I, right? But you know that this I squared is -1. So you have -1 times I, which is -I. Okay? And then what if we had I to the fourth? Well, I to the fourth is I squared times I squared. So that's going to be a -1 times a -1. That's just going to be 1. All right, let's continue. Not sure how much room I have. Not a whole lot of room. Okay. Let's say we had I to the fifth power. Well, that would be I to the fourth times another I. See, we keep multiplying by I here, right? So that would be 1 times I. That's just going to be I. What if I had I to the sixth power? Well, that would be I to the fourth times I squared, which would be 1 times -1, which would be -1. What if I had I to the seventh? Well, that would be I to the fourth times I cubed. But I to the fourth is 1, and we already know I cubed. It's right there, -I. And then we get I to the eighth. That would be I to the fourth times I to the fourth, which would be 1 times 1, which would be 1. So what I'm going to show you here is that it's cyclic. You have I, -1, -I, 1. I, -1, -I, 1. It takes 4 times to go through the cycle. So this is I to the first, this is I squared, this is I cubed, and this is I to the fourth. And then it starts over with I, -1, -I, 1. So if I went I to the ninth, I'm back to the beginning of my cycle. That would just be I. I to the 10th, that's going to be the next one. It's going to be -1. Yeah, it's -1. I don't know why I have the I squared circled there. I don't. I have the -1 circled. Okay. So I to the 11th, that would be -I. And then I to the 12th, that would be 1. Okay? And it's just going to keep going through that cycle. Okay, so that's the idea. It's cyclic. You're never going to have a power on I because it can always be simplified. It's either going to be simplified, your choices are I, -1, -I, or 1. Those are the 4 choices. Okay, you're never going to have I to the 7th or I to the 100th power. It can always be simplified to one of those 4 choices. So, I like to make my little I chart, and this is what I say. I is I. I squared is -1. I cubed is -I. And I to the fourth is 1. So we need to know those. And then we're going to talk about in the next example how to do a higher power. Okay? But remember, every fourth one, this is key, every fourth power, every group of 4 is just a 1. Okay, so I'll try to do this one in detail. This video might be a little long. And then I'll try to do another example a little quicker. So in this problem, we have I to the 35th power. Well, how many groups of 4 is that? How many times does 4 go into 35? I don't know. 8. With 3 left over. Okay? So what we're saying is I to the 4th 8 times. Okay, so raised to the 8th power. Remember, you multiply those powers. That's 32 of the i's. And then I have 3 more I cubed left over. This is like the remainder here. Okay, all of this is just 1 because you have 1 to the 8th power, and that's just going to be 1. So I get I cubed. But I can get that off my chart. I cubed is negative, is negative I. A little blob there. Negative I. So that's going to be my answer. Remember, I only have 4 choices. 1, I, negative I, or negative 1. I didn't say those in the right order, but those are the 4 choices. Okay, if you got stuck and you're like, okay, I didn't remember what I cubed was, you could think of it as I squared times I. But you know I squared is negative 1. Okay, so now let's see if I can do another example for you and break it down just a little bit easier. Okay? So let's say we have I to the 107th power. Okay, just making up a number here. You're going to divide 4 into 107. 2, 27. 4 goes into 27 6 times. Oh, I didn't come up with a good example. I just made up a number. What's the remainder? 3. That's what we go by. All the other i's don't matter. This you just get a 1 for all the other ones. So you get it down to I cubed, and that's just going to be negative I. So unfortunately, I got the same power. Let me try one more. Sorry, this video is a little long here. See if I can come up with a different one. I to the 42nd power. Okay, so how many times does 4 go into 42? 10, right? With 2 left over. The remainder is what we want. I squared. That remainder is going to be either 0, 1, 2, or 3. Well, we know what I squared is. I squared is negative 1. That's the one we're supposed to remember. Now, what if I had I to the 80th power? One more example. Because 4 goes into 80, right? 20 times, right? No remainder, 0. So you get I to the 0. But what do you know is I to the 0? 1. Because it's to the power of 0. And you could even think about it cyclically going backward, it would be 1. Okay, I think I've done as many as I can there.